Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Big Apple Hockey, a day that is once again full of topics on the NHL. We can't wait to discuss all of them with you. I, of course, am your host, Marc Williams, fresh from the dentist and a root canal. I've never been more connected to being a hockey player before. And I'm joined with the host of the Final Buzzer, Mr. John Falkowski.
West Coast trip. Here we go.
It's going to be a very important West Coast trip. They're going to have to keep that going. And, of course, the fourth period's Mr. Anthony LaRocco, tired of the Central trip, I guess you would call it. I don't know, Anthony. What do you call it?
You know, if you judged head coaches by the amount of hair gel they put in their hair, Lane Lambert would win the Jack Adams. But fortunately, that's not the case. It's actually judged upon skill and performance. So, otherwise, it's all about he's got going for him right now. He's got a good head. He's got a great head of hair. Other than that, bupkis.
Anthony, I got to tell you, you'll be proud to know that Maria has started referring to Lane Lambert as hair gel, thanks to you.
Yes.
And so, we're going to be delving. Yeah, we're going to be delving heavy into that. And as you know, Phil was ready to chime in. We're going to go to the A block right now. And also, everybody, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us and join us on anywhere you get your podcast.
Is it me, or does Lane Lambert look like he could replace Wolf the Dentist Stinson in friggin' the Mighty Ducks too?
He could. Yeah, he could.
He could.
He certainly could.
The thing that shocks me is that Iceland was a powerhouse. The Mighty Ducks too. Just to say this also, Iceland was a powerhouse, and they played Trinidad and Tobago, not both. So the Caribbean country that's won, they played individually, and somehow they have a hockey team in the juniors. So.
Let's just say the junior Goodwill games were not the format for the World Juniors.
No, they were not. All right. By the way, the A block is brought to you by Seat Geek. Use the promo code BigAppleHockey for $20 off your first order. And whenever Phil can, check out the Final Buzzer when he does some of his Rangers post-game coverage. And by the way, Anthony, we're going to be working on getting more Islanders coverage out there for you. So we'll go first. We're just mentioning we're going to go to the Rangers after this. They went 2-2 this week after ending a 4-game winless streak. But our primary focus is going to be on the New York Islanders. 1-3 this week, 48 points, tied for fourth in the Metro. Anthony, in this year, it has been a killer. You mentioned it before we went on. 5-1 win over Arizona. You thought everything was going to be like humming after that. Not so much. And the Islanders' goal differential now is at a -20. Lead us off with this.
So after they lost to the Canucks, which are a good team, you know, no shame in that. They bounced back against the Maple Leafs. They showed character. They came back from 3-1. They beat them, and you're like, okay, you know that's good. They responded well. The next game against Nashville, I mean, just the sad part is that was one of the better defensive games they've played all year. They held the Predators through 13 shots through 2 periods. You know, this is a team that has averaged the second most shots per game in the league. Only the Sharks have allowed more. So the Predators, they maybe it's because they were in town, poetic. They're playing against Barry Trotz. They dialed it back. They were playing a real good game. Pajot deflects, stops, and shot home late in the third period. 7 minutes left. They take a 1-0 lead, and you're like, all right, with the way they're playing, you know, I think they got this. And then, lo and behold, Kyle Palmieri takes a tripping penalty. Their penalty kill, which is ranked 30th in the league, once again lets them down. Predators score a power play goal. And then you're like, all right, 1-1, let's just get a point. And they blow it with 7.1 seconds left. And why there's so many things you can unpack about this game, but why is Matt Martin on the ice in that situation? The guy has only played in 23 games this season. He's been a healthy scratch a bunch of times. This isn't, 2015 anymore. Best fourth line in hockey. So Zekas is out. But why is Matt Martin on the ice? For a guy who's a veteran, been in the league a long time, 7.1 seconds left. You have the puck. Go off the wall. Go off the wall softly. Instead, he tries to make a pass to Matt Barzal exiting the zone, turned over, and story of the Islander season, a fluke shot deflects off Mayfield, flutters up in the air over Sorokin's head and lands in the net. Boom, Isles lose the game. That's the type of loss that hurts you. This is a scenario where, let's say, if they miss the playoffs by a point, maybe that comes back to bite them. But in that situation, you have to get a point there. You have to secure the point, and they didn't. They turned a good game that they were playing defensively into a loss, and it's really a shame because they deserve to get the 2 points. After that, they get totally blasted by Minnesota, lifeless, 5-0. Certainly you could tell that last game was kind of still weighing on them. They were not in it. A really bad game. Honestly, what I said to you, Mark, before we went on the air, a type of game that gets a coach fired, but we all know that's not happening at this point, which is ridiculous. So really bad game. And then last night against Winnipeg, best team in the league. They again, similar to Nashville, they played a good game. A 1-1 game, and then, again, typical Islander luck. They're shorthanded. Ilya Sorokin's steal falls off of his skate and is unable to slide across to stop the puck. Pionk scores 2-1, and then from there it snowballs. 2 minutes later, Winnipeg scores again. It's 3-1. Anders Lee got the goal back in the very beginning of the third, 3-2. Couldn't get the equalizer. So overall, not a bad game. Maybe just a little bit of bad luck. Maybe if Sorokin's steal doesn't fall off his skate, that doesn't happen. Maybe the game plays out differently. But nonetheless, they lose again, and 1-5 in their last 6. Listen, a lot of Islander fans are back to clamoring for Lane Lambert to be fired. But as what I tell everybody, it's not happening, especially at this point in the season. It's January. It's too late for them to bring in a brand new coach at this point and revamp the system. And and then on the other hand, having an interim coach, let's say John McClain or Doug Huda, that's not going to do anything either. So at this point, honestly, you have to ride it out with Lane Lambert, and see what transpires. But this is a team that was tied for second in the Metro after their win against Arizona, and now 1-5 in the last 6. They're on the outside of the playoffs by 1 point. Devils can leapfrog them tonight if they beat Montreal. So things are tight, and unlike years prior in the Metro, where maybe you can go on a streak like this and maybe hold your spot or maybe move down at least one spot, this year the Metro is different. Every team aside from Columbus is competitive. So you can't afford to lose, lose 6 games, essentially go 1-5 in 6 games. It's going to hurt you. The good thing is that, it is still January. There is still time, but it starts in Chicago. It starts in Chicago on Friday. Connor Bedard's out. They're the second worst team in the league. You got to turn it around, and they have to turn it around with a win, and then kind of move forward from here. But we can get to that in a little bit too.
I was about to say before you stop everything and go on to the next one, I actually wanted you to address that one because I actually thought this was kind of a questionable move myself when I found that he did it.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned this to Marc before we went on the air as well. Barzal and Horvat were humming, absolutely humming. I get that Cizikas went down, so you were down a center, so you had to shift things around. But
pull somebody up.
It's like, for instance, they just put him on IR today, which enabled them to recall a center, which they did, Kyle McLean. So Friday, Barzal and Horvat will presumably be reunited. But they should have done that from the very beginning. Once Cizikas was out and week to week, they should have put him on IR, recalled the center, so you could have kept Barzal and Horvat together. No, instead, Lambert breaks them up, and you break them up at the worst time when they're playing their best hockey. It was a really, really dumb move.
Yeah, I don't get it. You got both of them are about a point per game. I think Barzal's just over. Horvat is like almost exactly a point per game. Yep. Why is Lane Lambert doing that when you're finally getting the offensive results you want from these two players?
It's a head scratching decision. I again, like I said, I get it. Cizikas was hurt, but either put him on IR, recall someone right away, or move someone to center temporarily, and then until you can recall somebody. There was no reason to break them up, and that's not the reason they've lost a bunch of games in a row, but it's certainly maybe contributed to it. But yeah, certainly a head scratcher of a decision, and like I said, at this point, you're not going to fire Lane Lambert, so the only option is to work through it amongst themselves. Or last year, Lou made the trade for Horvat on January 30th. When they were 2 points out of a playoff spot. So, if he's not going to fire Lane Lambert, the only other thing he'd do to give his team a kick in the ass is make another move. But I don't know. We'll see what transpires, but. They have to start, they have to start winning hockey games again. Like I said, the Metro is super, super tight. You can't afford to lose a bunch in a row. And Chicago, it's a must win. It's a must win.
Do you know what this number means right now?
What?
Do you know what this number means? And
6?
then this number means too? Do you know what those numbers mean?
6 and 2? No, I'm not putting it together.
6 teams separated right now for the last 2 wild card spots.
Oh, yeah.
They're separated by 2 points. That's how tight this division is. And as for Matt's comment, Anthony said a couple of things about Lou Lamoriello that got us in trouble a couple of years back. So we'll probably never get credentials for the Islanders because of that. But yeah, if you ask all 3 of us, we'd probably have to lean towards yes for this.
Actually, I'm not even sure if I want to hit Lou on this one. The only thing I'm going to hit Lou on is going, Lou, old Lou, or the younger version of him, would have gotten rid of Lambert when he sees
definitely.
And that's why I think he's kind of past his prime at this point. And Evan comes back and asks if the Isles miss the playoffs. Could be it for not just Lane but also Lou.
I think so.
What's funny is they gave Lou that vote of confidence, Ledecky and Malkin, at the beginning of the year. But after this season, and they went out and they got Horvat, and they spent the money on Horvat, I'd have to start to believe that Ledecky and Malkin start thinking otherwise about Lou if they miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I would say if they missed the playoffs that he could, he could be out. But the problem is the Islanders organization is so secret. If you guys remember when the season ended last year, there was the speculation that Lamoriello's contract might be up. And then before the season started and they asked him his contractual status, and he kind of lashed out at the reporter saying that he doesn't even understand why these questions were being asked, if he was still under contract or whatnot. So we don't know what his contract, or if it was even expired. So we really don't know what his contractual status is.
Imagine if he was working on just without a contract somehow.
Yeah,
that'd be insane. That'd be insane.
I really don't know. So for instance, if it truly did expire, and let's say they maybe re-upped him for a year, it's possible. Yeah, he's not brought back if they miss the playoffs. But I would say it's a possibility if they miss the playoffs that he's out.
I'm with Empire on this one, though. It just seems like he puts himself into positions where he has to make snap or impulsive decisions, and nothing to do with our segment, by the way. But he goes and he makes these bad moves when he puts himself into those positions. So I definitely agree with this comment.
The other thing is that Lou, which scares some Islander fans, because some fans don't want him trading any more first or doing anything. But he's 81 years old. He wants to win now. I really don't think he necessarily cares about who comes in after him. So that's why I think that he may make another trade just to make sure that the team gets in the playoffs. But
who or what are they moving at that point?
We're going to get into that actually in Bar Talk, by the way.
Answer that. They do have their first, so they could move another first. I don't know who or what for, but I'm saying the point is I think Lou doesn't necessarily care what shape he leaves the organization in after he's gone. He wants to win now. So, if the Islanders stay in a similar spot to where they were last year when they traded Horvat, 2 points out, a point out, a point in, I think he's going to look to make another move. So we'll have to see. But for the short term, time being, again, not to repeat myself, you got to beat Chicago on Friday, and maybe start to build a little momentum again. Because again, while they're out of the playoffs, the margin's really thin, so they have to just win a game or two, and they're back up in there.
Yeah, this is a tough stretch outside of Chicago, and I mean, I'm not even going to say Montreal is just a give me game because the Rangers saw what Montreal can do to you. But I mean, this is a tough stretch for the Islanders: Chicago, Dallas, Vegas, Montreal, Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay, and then you get a little bit of a reprieve with Calgary and Seattle, who are still playing okay, although they're not great teams. And then you have the Rangers on the 18th of February for the Stadium Series game. So,
and by the way, for that game, I hope they're still going to be in the hunt, because if they're sliding out, you might see attendance dwindling on that. But just to mention this, guys, I can't help but say like this: Barry Trotz's successors haven't exactly been the best head coaches, because like a point to Todd Reardon, he had one good season and then nothing. Then you look at Saturday night, Islanders get the 1-0 lead. They can't penalty kill right now. They give it the power play goal. Now you got 1-1, and you got the team, and we talked about this, Anthony, for a while, why they keep blowing third period leads. And then you always just expect something bad's happening. When you are expecting something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen. Matt Martin throws the puck up the middle. He doesn't do that with Barry Trotz behind the bench.
No, I don't think so.
Wrong.
Yeah. No, he doesn't do that with Barry Trotz as the head coach, and that's the thing. Yeah, I said, they have three guys that may very well, have over 80 points, but at the expense of basically going back to Doug Weight style hockey. And, it shows. They bleed shots, and there's no focus on defense anymore, really.
You
need to find more of a middle ground, and again, and that part is on Lane Lambert. So
absolutely.
And also, it goes back to what I say all the time: I'll trust the team that keeps the puck out of the net than the one that tries to put it in, because all it takes is some bad ice, a puck flutters, that shot that's supposed to go top shelf ends up either getting flubbed or getting hit in the pads, and then you don't hear from whoever's shooting the puck. Or maybe it's a bad pass. That could also be another thing. But when it comes to the teams that keep the puck out of the net, they do a good job of that. So we're going to move on. We're going to get we got like 3 minutes to talk about the Rangers.
I think Anthony's frozen.
Yeah, I think he is too, actually.
Yeah, that face right there is basically the definition of watching like Lane Lambert hockey for him.
That actually was. That's perfect representation. Anthony, we saw you move. All right. So Phil Capocacco comes back into the lineup, and the Rangers win 2 games. What do you think, Phil? First, go with the 4-game winless streak, and then go into the last 2 games. Have they righted the ship, or is that just their low?
Listen, I think that was just their low point. I don't think you're going to get any worse than that. I think the worst is behind them. They're going to have some tough games, but I think that 4-game stretch was just kind of really, really, really bad. You're just seeing a lot of bad habits. I mean, Montreal, they could have won that game. So, 4-3. They could have won that one in a shootout. There were a couple of attempts, some blah attempts. Vancouver, they absolutely got routed. That was a game that they had no chance in because they just didn't show up. St. Louis needed a better effort, could have won that game. Could have. I think, honestly, they should have won that game. There was definitely some poor officiating in that game, but should have won that game if you ask me. Washington, the first game, they should have beaten them. They blew that lead, and that was just a real bad third period. They played, I would say, 30 minutes of decent hockey. Not good enough. you can't have a third period like that where you fall apart completely. The second game against Washington, the one that they won, was meh kind of game. Shesterkin really kind of stole that game for them, which is good to see because he needed to have a game like that. I think the team needed that to restore their faith in Shesterkin. And then, I think he needed that for his own confidence as well on top of that. But they come away with a 2-1 win, really hang on by the skin of their teeth. And then last night's game was the game that you want to see them play. A game where they dominated, a game where the score really isn't even indicative of how badly the Rangers outplayed Seattle in that game. Seattle had some bursts where they got some chances, controlled the puck, and so on. But that was just bad. And Matt brings up a great point here. I actually tweeted about this, I think either yesterday or the day before. And it was a Johnny Lazarus tweet that I retweeted. And since Christmas, the Rangers are like middle of the pack in the NHL in both power play and penalty kill. And the only reason why the power play is still top 3 in the league right now is because of the fact that they've had some bursts where they've been productive and then they've looked like crap at other times. And then the penalty kill has just been just dog shit, just terrible. They were 0-for-2 last night, which is bad. They need to bring in a penalty killer come trade deadline, whether it's Sean Monahan, whether it's Adam Henrique. I mean, Jason Dickinson and Nick Foligno were both taken off the board. Jason Dickinson would have been a perfect addition for this team, and that's a huge blow. But they need to bring in somebody that can kill penalties because what they're doing right now and the personnel in the lineup, just not doing it. Nick Menino cannot be in the lineup. Barclay Goodrow, I will say, played, I think, maybe his best game all year so far. And he looked the fastest I've seen him as a Ranger. He was noticeable. His line was really good. When he played with Pitlick and Vesey as the fourth line back in November, that was a really good fourth line. I will maintain and I will stand by the fact that if you have two guys that can skate with him, that can generate some sort of offense, he's a useful player. But I do think that we're going to see probably a better version of Barclay Goodrow going forward because that mask is off. He can finally eat solid food again. Yeah. And I think he's going to have some energy. And he's also a newborn father as well. Igor, Sabanij, and Mika, and Goodrow all have had off years, and they're all new fathers, first-time fathers. Artemi Panarin, his wife is expecting. So we hope that doesn't, that little trend doesn't continue. But
hopefully that enhances his play.
Maybe, hopefully it enhances as opposed to takes away. But, we've seen how it is with, the two other players and Barclay Goodrow. Welcome, Jason. Hope you guys are doing well over there with everything you guys have going on with you, by the way. So keep me updated on anything if you need anything, man. But, no, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, because Nick Menino is starting to show that he really, if it's going to be anything, it's fourth line center for the Rangers. That's about it. And they can't have kids and win a Stanley Cup. Barclay Goodrow, who spit out not a tooth, but a different part of his jaw.
And then did a Tory.
Yeah. Like I just said, I just got out of a root canal and I'm actually at 90% of my capacity, and that's just doing a podcast. But the Rangers kind of needed Capo Caco to get back into this lineup. They needed to get Blake Wheeler off that top line. I think they've gotten as much as they can out of Blake Wheeler. I know he had 2 goals last night. You need to upgrade the third line center if you're going to have Blake Wheeler in the lineup. And we're gonna be talking more about that as the future goes
on. Bottom 6 Blake Wheeler a remedy to a bottom 6 that needs depth? Is Capo Caco being there? Because like I said, if you're getting a productive Blake Wheeler and a productive Barclay Goodrow in the bottom 6, that solves a lot of your bottom 6 problems without having to go out and give up assets. Not only that, but that allows you to spend more assets on a guy like Lindholm.
Yep.
And really go for the dagger if those two can be productive in the bottom six.
Question I have for you, Phil, because we are going to cover Calgary and their UFAs soon enough in the bar talk. But how much is it going to take to get Lindholm?
You know what? I saw the asking price on Jake Gensel, and they want a first-round pick, Pittsburgh, plus a prospect like a Tom Willander or a Jonathan Lekkerimäki. And I don't think any team is going to want to give that up right now, especially for a guy like Jake Gensel. But I have to think that Elias Lindholm is probably going to cost something along the lines of a first-round pick and a prospect. I don't know if it's going to be a blue-chip prospect in addition, but I think it's going to be a first-round pick and a prospect.
All right. Well, guys, we're waiting for Anthony to get back on. And while we do that, we're going to get a quick message from DraftKings right here. And then we're going to talk about the All-Star Game. Talk about what?
I said spend money, bet on hockey.
Oh, yeah. And I've been doing a little bit too much of that lately. But all right, here we go. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame moneyline on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot and an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you want another phone.
Chill. Simmer down now.
I'm freaking out!
I just always love that intro, even though I don't like the name of this segment. But welcome back, guys. We're going to do some Big Apple Hockey impulsive reactions. And what we're going to be doing is a Big Apple Hockey All Star swap tonight. We're going to name a team with an All Star, and we're going to say either we're going to keep them or swap them out for something else. So let's start, Phil, with the New York Rangers and Igor Shesterkin. Are you keeping him or are you swapping him out for another player?
I'm swapping him out for Vinny Trocheck.
Agreed.
I don't think he's had that great of a year. He's been up and down. His struggles have been documented. Vinny Trocheck's a point per game player right now with their top line. I would obviously it should be Panarin, but Panarin won't be going because of expecting a newborn. So it's got to be Trocheck for me. No one else.
I agree 100% that it has to be Vinny Trocheck. And I'm actually pulling up to see whether or not he's had an All-Star appearance. I don't even know if Shesterkin would be, first off, by the way, 43 points right now. He's at a point per game pace. Him and Panarin are humming together. By the way, everyone that cried about Ryan Strome, what's it going to be with Panarin without Ryan Strome? Who cares? Vinny Trocheck is having a better season than Strome ever had with Artemi Panarin. And he's not a liability in the faceoff circle. But Trocheck I don't think he's ever been to the All-Star game. Should have had this ahead of time because he is the guy I'm picking. So put it down in the comments below whether or not he is. I'm not going to waste more time on that one. Phil, Matt Barzell, as we're still waiting for Anthony to get in here. Actually, you know what? Let's do some other ones before Anthony gets in. He's trying to sign in right now. Florida, Sergei Bobrovsky, or are you going to take a different Panther?
Alex Barkov. I don't even have to think twice about that one. He's a Selke competitor, and I believe he's about a point per game too as well. Like, how are you? Like, it's got to be Bar. Not only that, but what about Sam Reinhart?
Oh, he's going.
Like,
they need him. He's going.
Oh, that's right. He's in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Barkov in? I don't think Barkov's in.
Barkov is not in. Just Bobrovsky and Florida, because I'll get to the teams that they had to make.
He's got 46 points in 40 games, and he's probably going to win the Selke.
Now, Phil, even if you wanted to kind of spread the love, make somebody else a guy, and you know what, Matt, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. I'll send Carter Verhaeghe. 23 goals right now. He's having a really good season. Great for the Panthers the last 2 years. Send him. It's okay. If Barkov wants the weekend off, let him have the weekend off. He was an all-star plenty of times, but Verhaeghe would have been a good choice as well. Let's go to the Edmonton Oilers. They got Leon Draisaitl went in with the fan vote, and of course Connor McDavid. So would you keep Leon Draisaitl or swap him out for somebody else on that team?
No, I'm keeping Leon Draisaitl. Because Evan Bouchard made it. I'm pretty sure he made it. So I'm keeping Draisaitl.
Marc clearly screwed up something. Bouchard, I didn't have him that he made it. Because McDavid for the Oilers, he's a captain, and Leon Draisaitl. No, Bouchard did not make it, and that was the guy that I was going to swap in.
Okay, so Bouchard didn't make it. I'm okay with keeping Draisaitl. I get why you would want to put Bouchard, but I'm more than okay with keeping Leon Draisaitl. I mean, I know his numbers are down compared to what he normally is. He's normally a guy that would probably have around 55 to 60 points right now at this rate. I'm okay with Draisaitl staying, but if you want to go with Evan Bouchard, I get it. 42 points in 40 games is pretty damn impressive, because the last time an Edmonton Oiler defenseman had finished over a point per game, I think you would probably have to go back to Paul Coffey.
Wow. I was waiting for you to say it, and I'm still shocked after you said it. So it's still hard to believe.
I don't think any Edmonton in a full season, I should say. Tyson Barrie led the NHL in points by defenseman in 2021, narrowly beating out Adam Fox at the end of the year. But if you're talking about a guy who had like a full season of a point per game hockey, no. Barrie wasn't a point per game in 2021. He did 48 points that year. So yeah, if we're talking about a true point per game defenseman, it's got to be Coffey.
Yeah. Again, I have no problems with Draisaitl. That I'm just thinking spread the wealth a little bit on this one. All right, so we'll ask Anthony again when he gets back on in. For the Islanders, Nat Barzal, you're swapping him out for somebody else.
Come on, man. I feel like we just answered this last week. It's Noah Dobson.
Yep.
We had mid-season MVPs. It's Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson's been their best player. He stepped up. He's taken a bulk of the defensive responsibilities with the injuries to Mayfield, Pollock, and Pellick. I mean, I feel like almost everybody on that. I mean, you could call that Islanders defense corps the walking wounded, and it would actually be pretty accurate. So, yeah, I'm going with Dobson, 43 points in 44 games, plus 16. Absolute layup.
Plus 16 on a team now minus 20. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's how good he is. Probably, if he continues at this pace, he will be a Norris finalist.
That's amazing. And of course, the last one, Phil. I know it's not baseball, but you know how many players are on a baseball field? 9, because that's how many are going from the Maple Leafs and the Canucks. So do you swap out any of those guys, or are you going to keep them the way they are?
Morgan Riley was one of those guys that made it, right?
Yeah.
Ugh. God, yeah. That's proof that the NHL system needs to be fixed. Yeah, Morgan Riley having a nice season, 35 points. But really? Really? Him?
Yeah. It's one of those things, Phil. I got to say it like this. I understand it's in Toronto. I understand the fans voted on it. And it's reminiscent of, I think it was like 2010 or something like that when it was in Montreal. and you had the fans load the ballot boxes, Mike Komisarek and the entire Montreal starting lineup is up there with Sidney Crosby. And I'm okay with that slightly, but that's a 3 that was when it's 5-on-5. Now it's 3-on-3. And no, so you got to leave somebody out in the cold. Sorry if it's Mitch Marner, by the way. I mean, a lot of these guys, great players. It's just you can't throw everybody in there. Now on the Canucks, I'm not sure who to leave out on that one. I'm going to have to say the same thing. Sorry, we're going to have to leave somebody out. We got Brock Besser, who's got 27 goals. JT Miller, who's on pace for like 130 points. Elias Pettersson, who's playing better than he ever has before. And Quinn Hughes, who's leading all defensemen in scoring. Who do you throw out of there?
Miller is on pace for, let's see how many points exactly. 4 times that. 82. Miller's on pace for 112 points, which is really would be a career high for him. He'd be one of the rare Americans to break the 100-point mark. But I don't understand how. Listen. I'm totally against the whole everybody gets a nod thing. I can't, because in 1994 you had guys that were getting nods on teams that didn't even like. Why was anyone from Tampa Bay getting a nod in 94? Like, that whole thing needs to stop.
All right, but wait. Let me ask you about this, Phil. Let's say you're playing on a team that they're a bottom feeder team. You're doing your best. You're playing out of your mind. Let's say if you had Connor McDavid on the San Jose Sharks right now, and he's putting up numbers, but he's playing well. He's not getting the numbers, let's say, Leon Draisaitl is getting. Why shouldn't they send him as a representative? Or, like, there are sometimes bad teams have good players having good times.
Well, yeah, I mean, Florida in 1994 sent Bob Kudelski to the All Star Game, and he ended up having a 40-goal year that year. It's just an age-old issue where you're getting that one player that's playing on a bad team, and I get that the NHL wants exposure and they want all markets watching it, so that's why they continue to do it this way. But at some point, why are we snubbing the players that are really putting up the monster seasons that deserve it for the guys who are not doing that? And yeah, they may be on bad teams and they may be playing well, but it's all-star, not all very good or good. Like, it's like the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is not the Hall of very good or decent. You know, these all-star selections are for a reason. And I just think the process has become diluted a bit.
And on the other hand, though, you could have the same debate if you swap Dan Marino and Joe Montana, or is he winning four?
That's not the example you want to use, my friend. Dan Marino was on mediocre teams, and he turned those mediocre teams into great teams and put up insane numbers for his era.
Well, you got one of Anthony's favorite guys he loves to use in Puck Doku, Sergei Krivokrasov, in there. And welcome back in, Ant. That's good to have you in. Anthony, what do you think about, well, first, the All-Star rule that every team needs to be represented?
I mean, I can go either. Take that or leave it. I mean, my issue is that the whole selection process is just piss poor. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the fan vote portion of it yet, but, like, for instance, Artemi Panarin is very deserving, right? But his wife's having a kid, so, you know, he opted not to go. Why on earth did the NHL select Igor Shesterkin and his .904 save percentage as the Rangers representation? Why wouldn't it be Vinny Trocheck, who's a point per game? Like, why wouldn't it be him? I mean, the fact that they picked, like, Igor just goes to show that, you know, these All-Star games sometimes are just based on your name and what you've done prior. I mean, not a knock on Igor, because Sorokin's in the same boat, but He didn't deserve to be an All-Star this year. So again, the league, even the league selecting the players is just really, really bizarre and doesn't make any sense to me. And then the fan vote. I mean, I get the All-Star Game is all about fan engagement and the kids and all that stuff. So I get you want to have the fans participate. But the fan vote's a joke. You look at all the leaders, they were all either Canadian players or Canucks players, Maple Leafs players. There was an Avalanche too that got selected.
Anthony's internet is just not winning today.
Oh my God.
He's probably frustrated. Goes all hell over there. I don't blame him.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll reconnect in a second, Anthony. All right. Well, yeah, and look, and again,
how in the world did he get selected? And
you got
did it again.
So.
Yeah, you froze on us for a second, Anthony. So all of a sudden, when you started moving, we were like, "What?"
Yeah, I don't. Man, the charger to this laptop, my wife has, so I'm using just like a brick that doesn't have enough power supply for a laptop, more so a phone. I'm plugging it in, and I think it's just messing with how it's operating because of it.
Yeah,
but no,
but
like I said,
Anthony,
no, go ahead.
All right, but you would throw Dobson in for the Islanders, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Noah Dobson deserves to be in the All-Star game. I mean, for sure. The fact that he's not is just, it's silly. Again, it just goes to the fact, again, Matt Barzal's having a great year, so I'm not going to hammer the NHL and say they made the wrong choice, but like Noah Dobson should be in the All-Star game as well. There's no doubt about it. And that goes to the whole fan portion vote of it is, again, it's a popularity contest. The Canadian markets, as evident with the Canucks players, Maple Leafs. And I was saying before I froze, like Georgiev gets voted in and his sub 900 save percentage. I mean, kudos to the Avalanche fans and whoever at the contingent of people that were voting for him did their due diligence and got him in. But I would just change the whole process of how players get in completely. I think it should strictly go just based on merit for how you're performing this particular season, and have maybe eliminate the fan vote in the league, select all the players. I mean, I don't know, but it's a complete joke.
Yeah,
complete joke.
Phil, you first. I'll say the last word.
The fan vote's a sham. It really is, and that got proven when John Scott got it. I mean, was it a fun little thing to see John Scott in, and was it fun to mess with the media and the writers and everybody else and throw all the traditionalists up in a stir? Yeah, but that just showed you how flawed this entire process is.
Well, the funnier thing about the John Scott incident was that the NHL tried to steer away from the skid, which anybody that knows when you're driving, you always turn into the skid and you have more control over it. If you embrace John Scott, which they eventually did, he was the highlight of that All-Star game and took home MVP honors. So instead of making the Coyotes trade him to Montreal, I think they did.
That was bad.
Yeah, that was just bad. They look stupid with that. And I would say have the fan vote limited. If you expand it too much, it's just you're hampering players that have earned this right to get there. And it's not that it's not a great way for fans to engage, but there just needs to be a little bit.
Yeah, there needs to be regulation.
Like you can't vote 4 guys in from the same team. All right, guys, thanks very much for joining us on this section. We're going to go do some bar talk and talk more about the NHL.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. Welcome back, everybody. Once again to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk. We're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. Are you so confident that you're buying everybody around? So I'll just have a beer. Play along down in the comments below. And while you're playing along, I know there's going to be a layup comment. I'll get to that in 1 second. Yeah. Layup, yeah. And while you're doing that, click the link below. Go on Drizzly. Have them bring you some alcohol, beer, food, wine, beer, liquor, wine. Well, they're doing everything. Just go ahead. And of course, I didn't mention in the beginning, I flashed the graphic. Big Apple Hockey, trucker hats, and shirts are available. Working on some more jerseys. Phil, let's go right now with the Metropolitan Division standings, which are, and I think we got Anthony coming back in right now. All right. Metropolitan Division standings, 58 points for the New York Rangers, 54 for the Philadelphia Flyers, and 53 for the Carolina Hurricanes. The Rangers need to worry about Philly more than Carolina.
Shot. It's close to a layup for me. Philly's playing well, but they don't have the talent. They have the coach. They have structure, but they don't have talent. The only thing I'll say about Carolina is that they're going back to Antti Ranta, and if they don't get Freddie Anderson back soon, that could cause a lot of problems for them because their defense is good and their offense is deep, but their goaltending is just horrendous. Out of all the playoff teams, they might have the worst goaltending of all. So,
Phil, I got to go beer on this, and it's because of 2 reasons. 1, maybe 3 you could argue with, but 2 reasons on this, Phil. Philadelphia just isn't going anywhere. John Tortorella is still coaching these guys up. Carolina just hasn't found it yet. Their goaltending is a problem, but this is the most parity the Metropolitan Division has had possibly ever. And you got to make sure you're still winning because any slide can knock you down in the standings. The logjam at 4th place right now, 48 points for the Penguins, the Islanders, and the Washington Capitals. They're teams that you just can't separate themselves. Philly seems to be treading water up there with the Rangers, and it's got you worried. It's got to have you worried a little bit. Carolina, it looked like they were going to pass the Rangers. Then the Rangers win a couple games. Carolina loses a couple, and then the Rangers go past. By the way, speaking about those wild card standings is what I just mentioned. 49 points for Detroit and for Tampa Bay. The Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Washington all tied at 48. Wish we had Anthony for this one. Phil, Lou needs to make a big deal to save this season.
What is your definition of big?
That's a big thing. It was originally discussed by me and Anthony this week that it needs to be a big deal. I'm going to say that he needs to bring home Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, some of the top trade targets.
I think that would probably that would help them just try to get the division. I don't know if this is necessarily layup because I don't know if they need to make a big deal like that. I think they would be obviously better off if they did, but in order to make the playoffs, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think they can make a couple of moderate deals, and I think they would make the playoffs. If they want to really go for the division, then this is a layup then at that point. So I'm gonna say beer because I just think there's context that needs to be.
Okay. Well, I'll put it in a different context. Shot. And that's because, Phil, you said it best. The New York Rangers are sort of in an all-in moment. They have to go for it now. The New York Islanders, even if they go and get Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin, let's say they get both of them, how are they doing that with what assets they have left? Yeah. And then they're going to both leave in free agency, or one of them leaves in free agency. The Islanders might
I think they will both leave in free agency. I think both of those guys, wherever they end up getting traded to, it's not a slight at the Islanders. I think both those guys are going to hit free agency.
Yeah, because they have to test the market anyway.
And there's also actually, just to kind of blow some smoke on, not really blow some smoke, but to clear the air on this a little bit. Noah Hannafin is rumored to be signing a deal with Calgary soon. Eric Francis reported this earlier on. I think it was last week, maybe he reported this. So I think that it looks like it's somewhere in the range of $7.5 million for 8 years, from what I was seeing. I'm gonna try to find that real quick.
Well,
1 second. Yeah, 8 years, $7.5 million was the rumored figure from Eric Francis. So I'm not saying Eric Francis is right all the time, but yeah, that's a pretty significant rumor right there.
I had a fun topic that I had slated for Anthony, but we're going to come back to this one. First, we'll start with this, Phil. Elvis Merzlikins has reportedly requested a trade. Elvis Merzlikins can be a difference-making goaltender for a contender or for a playoff team.
I'm going to say shot. I mean, I know he was the guy. He was one of the guys there with Columbus in their last run. I know in 2020, when they went up against Tampa that second time. I'm not convinced about Elvis Merzlikins at all. I don't think that he reminds me a lot of like Korpisalo in that regard, where he's one of those guys who's really kind of a fringe starter or a very low end starter. I don't think. I know that Edmonton kind of was floated around as it's a team that could maybe possibly acquire him, but again, this would be another piece of gum that you'd stick in the crack of a cracking dam that's about to explode. So I don't think that he's really a guy that's going to get you over the top. Can Edmonton win a playoff round with him, or can a team win a playoff round with him? Maybe, but I think that's the most you're going to do with him. I just don't see him as a guy that you win with.
I think out of the goaltenders that are potentially available right now, and basically it's him and Jake Allen. I don't know if there's anyone else that's available, Phil. I'm going to go beer on it. He might be the best of what is out there. And
a whole lot.
I mean, I remember on NHL Network, forgot the guy's name, but I think it's Chris McKenna. He was mentioning how it's very difficult to just acquire a goalie midseason, plug him in and go stop the puck. Goalies are part of the system, and you have to understand a lot of things that are in there. That's why it's so hard when you're looking at teams that don't have a goalie in place to just go, all right, well, they're going to just go kick ass. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen very often, and there's a reason why it really goalie trades at the deadline, other than Ryan Miller and Yaroslav Halak over the last decade. I can't really recall many or any of the really that made that much of a difference. I mean, going all the way back to Dwayne Rolison as Ranger Central saying, goalie market isn't even having a mid. Thanks, because I didn't really finish the rest of it.
Yeah.
Phil, one guy that had a lot of success in the playoffs, Julian Breezeball, his captain, Steven Stamkos, who actually in the first cup run, he had basically 5 minutes of hockey and inspired the team. But he said, Julian Breezeball, that they will not trade Steven Stamkos. The Lightning should try to trade Steven Stamkos.
You know what? If I were them, I would. I would go round. And I know that it won't happen, but they need to replenish their team so badly with young assets. And if Steven Stamkos could get them a haul at the deadline, and a contender is willing to overpay out the wazoo for him, I get he doesn't want to go anywhere. That's really the issue. Stamkos doesn't want to go anywhere, and that's part of why they won't do it. Is Stamkos actually wants to stay. The team actually wants to keep him. They're not going to do it because of those reasons. But you could get a bunch of assets that could help you retool in a shorter period of time. And they've already won twice. They have nothing else to prove with this core. Yeah, could they go and try to get another cup? Yeah, but with what assets? You gave up so much for Tanner Jeannot, and that trade clearly has not worked out. It's not worked out at all. So why continue to empty the tank? Why continue to pull a Pittsburgh and empty the tank and continue to surrender assets when you have a team that has a ton of holes in it? Like, this is not the juggernaut team from 2-3 years ago. This is a flawed team that's a shell of itself. So I just wonder how they're going to be able to keep him with the cap space that they have going forward. Like, the cap going up has to be significant, and the discount that Stamkos takes has to be significant on top of that. So if Stamkos wants to stay, doesn't want to leave, is happy where he is, his family, whatever the case may be, kudos to him, kudos to the Lightning for coming to that common ground. But I would be looking at trying to move him and getting whatever assets I could, because I believe he has trade protection.
Yeah, I believe he's got full trade protection, actually.
I think he's got a full no move, if I'm correct. But I like him as a player still. I think he's a big time impact player. Yeah, still full no movement clause throughout the end of the deal, so that's not changing. But I still like him as a player. He's still productive. He's still about a point per game player or so. He's just actually point per game exactly 41 points in 41 games. He could give a lot to a team, and he could get a lot in return.
He's had a renaissance in his last couple of years. He had his first 100-point season 2 years ago, which is amazing because he had 60 goals in the season. He had his first 100-point season only 2 years ago. I can't believe that. Phil, there are very few guys that deserve to play their entire organization one team. And I think if he did that, I think he would lock up best Lightning player ever, Mr. Lightning, however you want to say it. Right now, to me, part of me just still leans towards Marty St. Louis as being that guy. But I'm gonna go shot on this. Don't move him. Try to get a deal done. Maybe don't sign everybody in the organization to huge extensions right away. And I mean, I don't know. It's just figure out how to keep arguably the best player in your team's history. Maybe that's just me. Have some loyalty at some point. Look, you look at the Pacific Division standings, and the red-hot Edmonton Oilers find themselves 1 point out of the top 3 in the Pacific. Edmonton will finish second in the Pacific. And just to make one note today, Jack Eichel for Las Vegas is now listed as week to week. Go ahead, Phil.
That's a big blow because Eichel's having one hell of a year. He's been just so big for Vegas. That's horrible news for them. Great news for the Rangers because they don't have to play him tomorrow night. So he won't be playing tomorrow night, which is great news for the Rangers. But Eichel's only week to week. He's not going to be out for the rest of the season. I still think they have a very good team otherwise. My question is with LA, even though LA has not been great as of late. They lost before their win against Carolina. They lost 7 or 8.
1, 5, and 4 in their last 10.
Yeah, just bad. You know what? I'm going to buy around on this, actually. I'm going to buy around on this. I just think that there's something with that locker room in Edmonton right now and Chris Knobloch that you just can't account for on paper. You can't account for it. They're playing with a level of confidence right now that they could go out there and just absolutely house anyone on any given night. And that's scary because you got the 2 best players in the world And one of those players is not even having that great of a year. Wait until he gets going. That's scary. That's a scary, scary thought.
Well, you know something? I still think Vegas is going to be right there, but I don't think it's that important to them. I think they're just going to get in the playoff seeding. So I'm going to buy around on this one too. I think Edmonton is just going to keep getting hotter and prove all the rest of us wrong who were ready to throw dirt on them. Yes, the Oilers have 4 games in hand.
He's right. They have 4 games in hand on not only Vegas, but the Canucks too.
Yeah. And let me just say it like this, though. You better finish as the top overall team in the Western Conference right now. Because if you're telling me you're going to get this, and now this one, we're still in January, everybody. It's a ways to go. But this Edmonton Oilers or the LA Kings, hopefully after they figure things out.
I don't think LA wants to play Edmonton again. I don't even care if LA has Pierre-Luc Dubois. I don't think they want to play Edmonton again.
No, they definitely don't. But one of those 2 teams might be a wild card, or maybe the outside shot Vegas. Like you better finish top overall in the West.
Oh yeah,
because you don't want to play one of those teams. Here's the thing, by the way, Phil. I'm going to still just say this: Edmonton looks great right now. They better have their defense, because every single year their defense, they get out defended every single year. Great year offense works, not so much your defense. Phil, you were talking about the Calgary UFAs and especially Noah Hannafin. It looks like he's going to sign, as you said, but right now he is not. Things could change. But Elias Lindholm, he's a UFA. Chris Tanev is a UFA. Jordan Osterley is a UFA. And Nick DeSimone, I just threw him on there just for the sake of throwing him on there. But Calgary needs – oh, sorry, let me say this also. They're 2 points out of the playoff spot right now, Calgary. Calgary needs to trade away the UFAs, even if they're in playoff contention.
Yeah, I don't see how Calgary keeps those players. There's been a mass exodus out of Calgary these last couple of years or so, with some really big names leaving, obviously Tkachuk and Gaudreau. Obviously Tkachuk by trade, but he didn't want to stay after some contract negotiations got real bad. Something's up with their management, or I don't know. It's just something behind the scenes. But it just seems strange to me that all these players don't want to stay. And as for Hannafin, I mean, it's a pretty significant rumor, but we'll have to see it. We'll have to see it to believe it when he signs on that dotted line and stays and doesn't leave. Otherwise, if there's no assurance by the time the deadline comes around, I think that, Calgary needs to really look at moving him as well. So, yeah, this is a round for me. Move all those players, get what you can get for them, and worry about everything afterwards. I get they gave out the big money to Kadri, and they gave them the contract to Huberdeau, which looks terrible. Unfortunately,
everybody would have given him that contract when they signed it.
I think they're going to regret that one for a very long time. But at least if they start moving these other guys, they can go with the scorched earth rebuild. And then here's something funny. Maybe they go with a scorched earth rebuild, change things around, and then Huberdeau all of a sudden finds the reinvigoration to play at a high level again. Who knows? Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. If he doesn't, then you'll just have to stick with that contract, or you'll have to retain 50% on it and move him when the term is less.
At the rate that they're going to be that contract right now, you'd be lucky if you got 50% retention and 1 second-round pick for him. Because I understand he's locked up and he's still Justin Huberdeau, and he's got a 100-point season under his belt, MVP finalist.
By design. Remember, guys, he called him Justin by design there.
Oh, son of a bitch.
No, he didn't call him Justin.
Yeah, I did by design. I'll say it like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jonathan Huberdeau, though, the guy has been a great player. They're not using him right in Calgary. He is just not fit. So, all right. Eating a little bit of crow on that one, everybody. But Phil, let me just say this before I'm completely discredited as a hockey opinion person.
Yeah.
This is sort of like somebody that's been cheated on, and then their next relationship, then they get cheated on again. But in this case, Calgary isn't going to do that again. They're not going to let Johnny Hockey walk out the door for nothing when they could have gotten draft picks and stuff for him. If they're going to score Earthfilk, then is Markstrom in play right here? And they're all going to walk. I agree with you guys.
I mean, the price on him is higher than people want to pay. John Gibson's price is going to be very high. I can tell you that. I mean, he would be the best goaltender available if he gets moved. But
Phil, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't want to hear about John Gibson getting traded until he does. And we got one last one on the bar talk, and I think this one might be a layup for everybody. The Dallas Cowboys lost to the Green Bay Packers 48-32 on Sunday. They've won, I think it's 3 playoff games in the last decade. The Toronto Maple Leafs are the NHL's answer to the Dallas Cowboys. The Toronto Maple Leafs are the NHL's answer to the Dallas Cowboys. I had to say that for editing purposes. Phil?
Oh, God. Here's the layup. Get the GIF.
There it is.
You silly individual.
I mean, it's just, and the Maple Leafs, I didn't flash this one before. One playoff series win since the lockout season.
You sure you don't have a goal hoop behind you somewhere and you're just doing layups and you're like, oh, let me just, throw this little, or you got like softball stuff in there and you're like, oh, let's just serve this little underhand, pitch. Just little lob pitch right there,
Like they're just, it's one of those things when it comes to this team, I never want to hear about them until they do it. And after all, they were supposed to beat Florida. So, well, yeah, actually, I did want an excuse for Anthony to laugh right there. But, I mean, you think about it also, like, everybody's saying the Maple Leafs have their most hated fans, so around the league, which I don't buy that. There's a survey that was done by J Fresh Hockey that just does not seem right. David saying, but seriously, no, the Leafs are worse. Not really softball talk. They're all pretty good. Oh, Stephen A. Smith said, just about the Cowboys, just wait and they won't disappoint you, because they will disappoint you. Although that's about as much as I'll take from Stephen A. Smith. He's said enough. And there's the biggest layup for Big Apple hockey history. I don't know about Anaheim moving Gibson, but guys, we're gonna slide into Q&A right now. If there's any left on there, thanks for watching Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we gauge our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. All right. And let's take some questions, see what you guys ask. Maybe you guys got less layups than I do. He's in the chick at last call. Wow, that is a big one. Yeah, those. So anyway, going around the league this week, anybody see that goal Kakko had last night? That was impressive. It was like he forced that puck to go into the net. And I don't even think he got it all. It was a good one-timer, a good feed from Zibanejad, who he had a pretty good night. Phil and I did not get into that before. Killing just about another minute. How's everybody dealing with the cold right now? Throw your comments down. Single digits. David saying, no, none of the Ranger fans saw it. Hey, some people haven't seen it. Some people haven't seen it. Yes, they want to win. You guys, this was front. Do the Rangers want to win the cup? Yeah, that was their New Year's resolutions. Everybody wants to do a New Year's resolution. Will they have the willpower to do it? Granny saying, I made donuts. That's fantastic. By the way, if you have not read it, she had an interview with Jesper Wallstead that is on BigAppleHockeyPodcast.com or BAHpod.com. Yeah. There's Bailey was saying, go Bills. I'm pretty sure I'm alone with no Anthony here. It might be a couple of them. I'm not. I'm still rather annoyed about what the coach said. You can look it up and Google it. Are the Dolphins still frozen the field in Kansas City? Yeah, they might be, but nobody would know because it was on Peacock. And that was a terrible, terrible decision by the NFL and just an awful broadcast. I'm glad I was watching it. Oh, David's saying, I'm a Bills fan and been since the days of Doug Flutie, the late 90s. Jay's saying, I still cannot believe the Flyers are this good. Well, you know what? John Tortorella, take a look at the 2011-2012 Rangers. They weren't exactly swimming with talent, but they were a hell of a team. So it was they were good with that. NYR for Life is saying, question, even if Hedl can come back, do the Rangers want to risk him being one hit away from another concussion? Should the Rangers just tell him to sit out a year and get a center via trade? That is a great question, and that is something that we, as Ranger fans and even as writers and pundits, you got to wonder. First things first, is Philip Hedl healthy enough to play hockey? That's the first thing, because you don't want to risk your health, especially in situations like that. By the way, David saying Doug Flutie would still be more talented today than Rob Johnson was back then. And yes, they had Hank, but also John Tortorella knows how to coach. Man's got a Stanley Cup for a reason. Going back to this one real quick, and then I got a good question from Rob. The thing with Hedl is, first, because the Rangers rely on him to be in the lineup. He can't be one hit away, because if he is, then the Rangers are going to risk having him as their third line center and end up with Nick Bonino centering that third line in the playoffs. You got to go for it this year. You got to upgrade everybody. I think you would have him sit out, but I don't know if him sitting out a year is going to help. Because, by the way, people can remember, he sits out 1 year, 2 years, however long it is. Brain doesn't exactly heal like that. So, and after all, Pat LaFontaine sat out for a while, came back to the Rangers, had a good year, then got hit, and he was done. You don't know when that happens, guys. You don't know when that happens. Rob is asking, Marc, are you doing party bus for the Stadium Series? The plan is still to do the party bus. I'm meeting with a guy this week to try to do that. Hopefully to get a ride. Actually, I'd love to get some more tickets because I would love to take the missus to the game. Rangers should keep Hedl out for the playoffs, even if he's ready now. If the extra cap space is way too valuable. Matt, that's a good point. But again, you got to know if he's healthy. Problem with the Kucherov thing, and everybody wants to keep on focusing on the Kucherov thing and the Mark Stone thing. You got to work your way out in playoff games when you're supposed to be at your absolute peak. So that's a big thing. J.E., do the Rangers need to get a defenseman, or do you think it's mostly a forward issue? I think they need to get one center and one defenseman. Now, you need to go for a low-cost defenseman if you say go for an Elias Lindholm, because the Rangers start to run out of assets too, and you can't just be trading everybody forever. All right, guys, we're going to go for about 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to run. Bailey was saying, Boyle was talking about it. You can't assume that he's going to get hurt again. Stahl had like 4 head injuries and hasn't had one in like 5 years. All right, Stahl was obviously from Marc Stahl. Yeah, well, he didn't have his brother hit him, but that's a different story. It is one of those things where it's just. David was saying Pat LaFontaine was a hit away for 10 years. Crosby had concussion problems and suddenly it was like, hey, but Crosby was whiplash. That's the reason why on that. GTG is saying, worried about Zook every time he steps on the ice. Well, yeah. And by the way, Phil also brought that up right there in that comments. Crosby's issues were more on his neck. And there are a lot of guys that happens with. And why are the Blackhawks and they're extending Dickinson and Foligno? Sometimes it's not about teardown. You need to have an organization that, and remember, organization, you don't want to just constantly be just throwing guys out because it's just not going to work. I'm going to start playing the music. We'll take a couple more questions and get on the way out of here. It's amazing. I'm still talking, and I had a root canal today. Boom, boom. Which organization is in bigger trouble, New Jersey or the Islanders? The Islanders for their future, New Jersey for right now, but New Jersey looks like they're getting stuff going little by little. All right. Chicago does need to field the team. That is 100% true, David, because no, but you need to have something on the ice. You can't just bring up everyone else. All right. Guys, thanks very much for joining us this week, and we will see you next week from Phil and Anthony. And hopefully Rangers going out west and the Islanders can turn things around. We'll see what they can do. Talk to you later.